Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. I am your host, John Espinosa, to the Leading Leaders podcast. But right now I want to get into this Bollig method, because that is one of the things that when I first talked to you, you were like, I got something cooking. And he goes, I'm going to share it with you, right? You said, hey, I'm going to share it with you. I want you to, go through it and give me a great testimony. You didn't have to ask that, because this works. I've been doing it now right at 10 days. So I started this 10 days ago. You gave me access to your materials, and every single day I have been practicing this, and it's been a life changer. I was struggling with kicking off my coaching program. I just kicked it off. Jake just mentioned it. I was second guessing myself, and Jake knows. Yeah. I talked to him about it, and I will testify that because of this method, I was able to do it. And we kicked it off on Saturday. And so, Jake, tell us about this, man. Tell us how it came about. Tell us how you named it.
Man,
please share with the listeners, because this is gold, man. This is gold.
I got goosebumps, man. You give me goosebumps. Thank you, brother.
True.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to talk about that. Before, I want to say thank you for being selfish. You started right here, and you said you were selfish and you took some time for yourself. But look what being selfish has done. Yeah. How many people have you helped for being selfish? Like, so many people have benefited for you being selfish. So I hate that word, selfish. If you really dive into it, it's a great thing. It can be a great thing. There's versions of it, but thank you for being selfish. Yeah, the Bollig method, man. This stemmed from that truck accident in 2014. It really got my brain working. Like, how can I gain hyper awareness? In that moment, I was able to hyper analyze so many data points like never before. And it really opened my eyes to that. And I said, I went on a mission. How can I get as close to this awareness, get as close to this creativity as possible? But I had a couple caveats. I didn't want to lick a toad in the Amazon jungle to get some kind of psychedelic drug. I didn't want to do any drugs. And I didn't want to have to go get into a truck accident every time I wanted to get hyper awareness. So it took me a couple years to figure it out. I ended up with the finished version, what you have. But it took me a long time to figure out how to teach it, how to get people from zero to what I wanted to get to. I could get to it, but to teach it, you're a great teacher. There's some steps in there that got to be filled. So it took me a while to fill it. Now for me, it's everything, because it takes a person from being the conditioned person with all the baggage, like you said,
yep,
to that creative kid, that 4 and 5-year-old that says, just go do it, because they're the smartest. You go, I got it. And then 4 and 5-year-olds say, just go do the thing. Daddy, why don't you just go start the company? And you're like, that's a great point. Why don't I just go start the company? And this 4 or 5-year-old kid's dropping wisdom on you. That's the purpose of the entire method. So what I want to do is build a community of crazy people around it. So I have a community called Malucos. It's a Portuguese word because I have a little Portuguese background. And it just means crazy people, or means crazy person. And so I want to build this community of people that are saying, I've given myself permission. I'm willing to be creative. I'm going to erase all that conditioning, and I'm just going to take it to another level. The true level that you're supposed to be. It's not really even another level. It's taking all the stuff off of where you are. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's there, but it's covered up under tons and tons, like ore, like gold ore. It's covered up under a mountain of conditioning. So I'm like, let's take all this away and let's go party, man. Yeah. Let's go see what's possible. And so that's what I'm doing. It's kind of a culmination of how I can share with people. And I want to give your audience something special too, for allowing me to be on here too. And we can talk about that at the end, but that's what it is. And I encourage everybody to at least dabble in, at least give it a shot. Because like you said, it's going to give yourself permission, and you're going to be able to get that creativity back and that playfulness back that allows you to take over.
Yeah, no, well said. And, one thing that as I was going through it, and, I want the audience to experience, because I want them to go out and sign up. But one of the things I'll just share real quickly is this hyper awareness. And over the past probably 2 months, I've been working with a coach, and I'm really getting in and unpacking like this neuroplasticity and
that's great.
Science. And, we talked about Joe Dispenza and changing the habit of being yourself. And the connections that we create over time, that conditioning that we, have molded ourselves to think, to believe, and to act, right? And what I've learned from your program was the fact that piece, I could overcome my thoughts. I could overcome what I was previously conditioned, even at the smallest thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. I mean, I have a growth mindset. It's not like I'm stuck in the mud and I believe people can change. But
Sure.
what this taught me is how fast you could change. I think the average, normally that's why you see like a 75 hard program is about 66 to 70 days from what research has told us, to really start creating habits and turn those into now just behaviors that we do on an everyday basis. But this, like even in the 10 days that I've been doing this, has opened up my mind to some really creative stuff. I got a board over here, and I've talked about this to the listeners. It's my idea board, right? My big ideas. And you talk about big idea, this community of crazy people, right? Creating chaos and changing out of that chaos and really embracing the chaos. You said a couple things earlier is we take words all the time in our lives. Selfishness, conflict are a couple that just come up, and we put negative connotations to them. Why? Why do we? Because of our conditioning, right? And so what you're asking them to do is look differently at that stuff. Look differently at a word and think opposite, almost 180 of what we've been conditioned to realize what that word means. And that's what's amazed me about, what you're doing, a little bit about your conditioning. One of the things, and I'll ask this question here for you, is you talk about real creativity coming out of chaos, and you want to create an environment where ideas can be wild, mistakes are okay, the unexpected is welcomed.
Right.
A little bit about that unexpectedness and why it's so important.
Oh my God. How much time we got? We got some time left?
As much time as you want, brother.
I have some gems. I could give them all night. I have some gems. So, the unexpectedness. Well, as far as the chaos, the conditioning, we have so much stuff to unpack here. A saying that I really like to do is say, don't let the first time be the first time. At face value, it doesn't make any sense. At face value, it doesn't make any sense. But I know, like when I lived in Europe, let me give you an example. I would get lost on purpose. I would say, I'm going to take a left turn. I would just take a left turn to see where I could go. And so if you get yourself in these situations and you put yourself in unexpected situations, you start to build intuition, and then you start to build a gut that you can trust, right? And then you find out that you're actually pretty creative. And then you stack this experience on top of each other, and then you become okay with chaos. And then here's the beautiful thing. If you do enough chaos, it's no longer chaos. It's only chaos to other people. Think about that. Does that make sense? Like, if I'm in chaos all the time, I acclimate to the chaos. And for me, it's normal. So I'll give you an example. So when I moved to Portugal, when I moved to Europe 5 years, I think it's 5 years ago now, I moved to Portugal, and I have this saying on my phone, live a life that someone would pay $50,000 to hear about. All it is it's on my phone. All it is it helps me it's my barometer of my action. How can I make this cooler? How can I make this story better? Right. So I'm moving. I've never been there. I've moved there before I ever visited. I never visited before I moved. And I was like, how can I make it harder? How can I make this story cooler? I was like, I won't talk for the first week that I'm there. And I'm going to integrate to the community without using my words. I'm not going to say a word. So I go there, the most nervous I've ever been. I'm on a train. I'm not using words. I'm making up this thing that let people know I can't talk. I'm improvising, but I'm sticking to my game plan. I'm like, I am not talking. It's getting late. I'm sweating. The adrenaline's pumping. I don't know if I'm gonna get to my town. I don't know anything. I'm like, I'm not freaking talking. So first day, most nervous I've ever been. Second day, a little less nervous. I'm in the community, ordering coffee, ordering pizza, ordering whatever, doing the whole thing, but I'm not talking. Using different gestures, and I'll write on a piece of paper, whatever I got to do. And by day 3, I start to get a little bit okay. I feel my body, like I wake up, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with this. But remember, I'm not saying a word at night. I'm not talking on the phone. I'm not singing. I'm not doing a single word is not coming out of my mouth. And so by day 4 now, this is the amazing thing about the body. Day 1, most nervous I've ever been. Day 3, I'm like, okay, this is better. Day 4, I am cool. I am like, this is normal. And by day 7, after I allowed myself to talk again, I had to remind myself to talk. I would go into a store the day 8, I went to a store, I didn't talk. And I go, hey, dummy, you can talk. You already did your experiment. So let me fast forward. So I went to look for the hard. Yeah. Now, let me fast forward. I'm in Portugal and COVID happens. Everybody has a COVID story. Well, it sucks. I live right by the beach. I can't go to the beach. I get the police kick me off the beach, all this stuff. I don't touch a person, like a handshake or a hug, for 6 weeks. It's brutal. And I'm like, I'm gonna move. And on top of that, my business was to speak to colleges back in the US. Stay in Europe, fly back to the US, give talks to college. There was no more talks. If you remember, all those got canceled. You couldn't even freaking be in public. So I talked to my buddy. And it's a long story, but I talked to my buddy. He's got something going to Arizona. He wants me to go to Arizona. No contacts, zero business, zero website, no phone, nothing. I talked to him for 30 seconds. He goes, "You think you can do that?" I go, "Wait, I get to speak English?" This is no problem.
Yeah.
This is no problem. I go out there within 2 years, we're killing it because I already did the super hard thing.
Yeah.
Another country, other language. They're speaking Portuguese over there in Europe, where I was. So they come back. I got to come back to my own country, my own culture, and this is no problem. So that's why I say, don't let the first time be the first time. Go find the hard thing, and when you got to do something, it becomes normal. You acclimate to it. So that's a long story, but
yeah. No, that is an insane story. I can imagine moving to another country, not talking for a week. I mean, talk about your day 1 being nervous. I wouldn't get out of bed, Jake. I mean, seriously, I would find a corner, and that would be the corner that I would just die and perish in. Seriously, I mean, I travel quite a bit, right? And it's just crazy to me that you would go to a foreign country, not speak, and then, figure it all out though, right? And trust yourself. I think that's what, like, as you were speaking, like, how much trust did you have to have in yourself? You said gut, but in the end, man, there's a lot of heart that comes out of that experience and what you've learned from that, right? I mean, that's insane. That's just
it's a wild thing. I actually wrote a little booklet out of it called "Go Find Nervous," and it ended up being it's a theme of my life is go find nervous. If you have no progress in your life, you feel not getting anywhere, it's because you haven't found nervous. Go find it. Whatever's making you nervous, go find it and have a conversation with it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? Like if it's a job or a relationship or anything, there's a tough conversation or a tough meeting that you're not having. Go have that meeting. And so that came out of that little experiment. Go Find Nervous was this little booklet I created out of it. So it's a fun experiment.
I'm sharing this episode with my kids, seriously, because you just dropped a ton of knowledge. And, one of the things that I always learn something new when I talk to you. And, one of the things that today has really just been evident is your, like, awareness of not only where you're at, but where things are around you. I enjoy following you on social media. One of the things that I want to get into next, because we have a little bit of time here.
Sure. I'm here all night, whatever you got.
Well, again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you're sharing with the listeners. And one of the things that we've talked a little bit about this, but it's about like this, it's in your method that you talk about. It's the catalyst piece, right? It's that catalyst piece. How is that, when you were thinking up how to teach this, talk me through, like, when you got to that catalyst piece, how did you figure that piece out?
Like, in what regards, John? What do you mean? Like the catalyst in the method, how to choose the catalyst word, or
Yes, how to choose like that cat, because, for me, I'm very logical and I'm very grounded. And the association piece was, yeah, I could get through, and then the hyper awareness. But when it got to that catalyst, the word, because I think that's where people get stuck.
Okay.
They think a lot, right? And they think that they're working by thinking.
Right.
And they never get in that doing piece, right? And that's what that catalyst piece to me, that's where I was going. I was going to see if that was where you kind of thought it was out, or.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, I got you. I just want to make sure I was answering the right question. Okay. First of all, two-part answer. One, we think a lot, like you said. We try to think to create. Now, here's the thing. Whatever we become aware of, real creativity is really an awareness, is what creativity is. It's not a thinking, it's an awareness. And thinking is, in my opinion, thinking is how you construct it in a way to communicate it for whatever project you're trying to do. So creating is just an awareness. That's an apple and that's a blender. I'm going to make apple juice. Okay, that's just an awareness. There's two things, in my opinion. So the catalyst, in my opinion, is just a starter. Okay, and what I want to do is this. We have a problem, which you mentioned earlier, with words. We put too much meaning to words, and it debilitates us. It absolutely debilitates us. So with this program, I want to get to a point where I'm okay with whatever thought comes into my mind. Okay, so I'll give you an example. My family speaks Portuguese. When I did not know Portuguese, if I got cussed out in Portuguese, it didn't mean anything to me. I didn't even know I was getting cussed out. I'm like, that's fantastic. Okay, I'm laughing. They're mad. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. So.
Hey everyone, John here. I wanted to jump on and quickly talk about my Kickstart the New Year Challenge. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you got a lot of irons in the fire and you're not really progressing, you're not getting anywhere, maybe you feel lost. I know I did. And over the past decade, I have been working on a coaching program to help myself. And now I want to give it to you. Head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, sign up. You're not going to want to miss it. You owe it to yourself to kickstart the new year. Get going now. Don't wait till January 1 when everybody else is going. Get ahead of the game. You owe it to yourself. Go be great.
We do that, and that's what we want to do with our words. Because here's the problem with today's society. We got a lot of propaganda and a lot of stuff coming into our minds. It's not healthy, right? And then so we'll put stuff like shame on our own self. And shame is something that we were conditioned to have. So then we'll have this shame because we thought of whatever. And it's not even us creating it. It's us being aware of the thought. Okay, I'm going to get to you. Hang with me. So what I want to do with this catalyst part and with this program is, when these thoughts come into my mind, and let's say I say, let's use a work example. Let's say somebody yells at me at work or something. Somebody says something cross. Somebody gets me in trouble, quote unquote, with some kind of division. And I have this thought like, man, I wish they would I hope they get fired. Let's say something simple like that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe afterwards you say, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I'll say, I shouldn't have said that. The conscious part of me says, I shouldn't have said that. Well, why shouldn't I have said it? Because somebody told me I shouldn't say it. I'm not saying that's the right thing to say or the wrong thing to say, but I'm putting shame on myself already. Why? Just let it go. When I'm creating, and that might be a bad example. I'm not saying to be rude to people. That's not what I'm saying. My point is, when these ideas and thoughts come into our mind, if we can allow them to pass through and not give them any meaning, then what happens is we take all the governor off our creativity. Okay, we take all the limitations off our creativity. Now, if I confront every single thing in my mind and I laugh at it because it's stupid, because somebody gave some meaning to it, and I'm listening to that meaning, and I laugh at it and go, I didn't even make that meaning up. Somebody told me that. Why do I have to feel shame or feel bad or feel embarrassed? That's a stupid word. If they call me that a different word, I won't even pay attention to it. So we put these meanings to it. And now when we confront all that to ourselves, when we laugh out loud and we go, can you believe you just said that? Or you just wrote that down? You just thought that? And you go, who cares? Who cares? And now you're dangerous. Because now you're not afraid to be the 5-year-old kid, to take your creativity, to launch your leadership program, to do whatever it is you want to do, because it's just you and it doesn't matter. And so you're not going to feel embarrassed. You're going to feel damn proud. I launched this thing. And who cares if I feel proud, really? It's what I wanted to do. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm kind of going around, but the point is, we put too much emphasis on words. We get bogged down, and it stifles our creativity. We end up 85 years old talking about the things we should have done. And it's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to do. And you're wasting so much creativity if you do that. It's my opinion. But who am I? I mean, I'm just a redneck from Oklahoma, so what do I know?
You know a lot, Jake, because I'll tell you, one thing that I shared very early on in this podcast was one of the reasons why I started, right? And I lost my grandmother in last December. It's been almost a year. And in September of last year, we lost a mentor. She was my wife's mentor. I've talked to you about her. And she died at a very young age from a very aggressive form of cancer. And, I got to the point where she had bought us tickets to go see her speak. It was one of the very first big stages that she was going to speak on, right? And she bought her whole entire team these tickets to go watch her. She didn't make it. She passed away prior to this event. So my wife and I, we talked, and we said, "Hey, are we going to go? Are we going to do this?" Jessie Lee's not speaking, and she turned to me and she said, "We're going. We're going to go." And it was at that event I got to watch the top speakers on the stage, the Ed Milet's, the David Goggins, the Tim Grovers, the Gary V's. I mean, the top. Yeah. And I've told you this, I will be speaking on the largest stages in the world, man. I will be. At that time, I started all my social platforms. I named everything. And it was something that I quit listening to that voice. I quit listening to what others would consider, what they think of me, right? If I was on social media and who would listen to me? Who would listen to John? I'm 44 years old. I'm not a CEO. I've never ran any big corporations. What do I know? I've just failed a lot in my life. Right. I've lived a lot. I was a young parent. I tried to get in medical school and I failed at that. And so I had to go figure out and do something else. And when you were talking earlier about go do the hard things, go, to a country that you've never been to and not speak for a week, it brought me back to being 20 years old and having 2 kids under the age of 2, right? And still having to go to school and working myself through school, racking up a whole bunch of college debt, and then, not getting into medical school and trying to figure out what's next for me. Man, it made me who I am today, Jake. And so when, you tell everyone to quit listening to everybody else and everything that we've been conditioned to know, I hope that the listeners out there take that to heart. And, one of the things that I want to leave them with, and we'll end here in a little bit, but one piece of advice that you could give somebody out there who may be stuck or maybe struggling, or maybe that person out there that says, "Yeah, I'm not creative. I don't see myself as being creative." What piece of advice that you could give them?
And they want to be creative or no?
Well, either they want to be creative or they don't even see it in them, right? Because they've been conditioned their whole entire life that they're not creative. They draw stick figures. Because I think that's the other thing, Jake. When even the word creative, like when I'm creative, when I thought about it prior to like you opening my eyes about what that really means, is I thought about being the difference between drawing a stick figure and like painting a mural, right?
Yeah.
So that's how concrete and black and white and abstract that I thought creative meant. But, for someone out there that really wants to open their mind and be creative, what advice could you give them?
Yeah. Well, I think that's conditioned in all of us. I think that's where we go to with the creativity is that can you draw or not draw?
Yeah.
but it's not that. What creativity is, if you want to be creative, you really have to ask yourself, do you want to do that thing that's inside of you? And then there's something inside of you. And if there's a lot of people that are completely comfortable, they're never going to go hunting for creativity. They're never going to go hunting, but that's not your listener. If somebody's like, what do I have to do? I'll give you three things. You ask for one thing, I'll give you three things. If you do these three things, you will find a different version of yourself in 2 or 3 weeks, and maybe sooner than that. You have to commit to one thing, removing the layers of conditioning. Just say, and you don't even have to, there's no right or wrong. You know what? Let me tell you this. This is what I'm going to tell you. There is no right or wrong. Okay? So if you want to go do something, go do it. If you don't go do it. If you want to be the best rock collector, river stone collector, under 3 ounces, I don't even know, I'm just making this up, under 3 ounces in the world, then do that. There is no right or wrong. And when we're talking about creativity, because there's a difference between creativity and commercialism and selling. Those are two different things. So if we're talking about, I want to be creative, I want to be playful again, then you have to commit to removing creativity. You got to commit to something, and then you have to be willing to say no. You got to be willing to say no to all the other stuff. And actually, if you just start saying no to all the other stuff, you're going to see opportunities and doors open up, and you're going to be able to allow yourself to be creative. To say just one thing to that person, I'd say ask this. Here, you know what? I'm going all around, but let me settle on this. I told you I got a lot of stuff. I could go for 5 hours. Ask yourself if you want to be creative, and then listen to yourself and turn everything off and sit with yourself in a room for as long as it takes. And if you'll find yourself and you'll find the answers, and then now you're on a quest. And I would say next, go find something that makes you nervous and go do that. That's what I would say.
I love it, man. Hey, yeah. I can't thank you enough, Jake, today. And I'm going to have you back, man, because we could go all day long talking about leadership, talking about life, talking about, what it means really to push yourself and to go find nervous. One thing that I do want, is to give you an opportunity. So your program, 10-Minute Creative, that you kicked out. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell the listeners where they can go to go check it out, because it's big, man. It works. Trust me, I've done it.
Man, I appreciate it. If you just go to 10minutecreative.com, I have a ton of information about it right there. And what I want to do for your listeners, if you use the code ESPO, I just made this up today. If you use the code ESPO, I'm going to give it to you for free. And it's probably going to go for, I don't know, a couple weeks. I don't know when this episode drops, so we'll say a couple weeks. So get in there and do it fast. But use the word ESPO, ESPO, go to 10minutecreative.com and get it. And then, of course, all my other stuff, jakebolig.com. If you have any questions, I'm an open book, man. So just, if anybody has anything to ask me.
Appreciate it. Go check this guy out. Go to the 10-Minute Creative. Make sure you all sign up. You're not going to want to miss it. Jake charges for this, but it sounds like he's offered to you, for this short period of time to go out and experience it yourself. Listen to him. He has a website out there. You got a podcast, right? Or not a podcast, a YouTube channel that you have a lot of videos on. What's your other, real quick, because you got something else going, man. Tell us about how much money, this is your new experiment. I don't know if we want to get into it because there's a lot of unpacking there, but
Yes, we got a lot of stuff to go ahead, whatever.
Yeah. It is, just tell the listeners just real quick about what you're doing on this other piece here.
Okay. So the YouTube experiment, it's a challenge to earn $209,082 online. For this one specific product. And the reason is because I've never done it before. I've been successful in industrial companies, oil and gas, building services, and I wanted to do just what I'm talking about, man. I wanted to go figure out how to do something else. And so it's on my YouTube. I got a couple videos up there on that, but I'm going to take everybody through the whole journey, like the ins, the outs, the pitfalls and all that. So, but yeah, you're right. On 10-Minute Creative, I'd normally charge for that. So go take advantage of that now, because it's only for your listeners. But yeah, man, we could talk all day long, man.
Appreciate you. Hey, this has been a a great experience for me, Jake. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks for, sharing, being vulnerable. And again, everybody go check out Jake. He's doing big things. Go be great.
I appreciate
Talk
it.
to everyone later. You're welcome. See you, Jake.
Thanks, John.
If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor, click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.